Your dreams are bigger, bolder, and more badass than the life you're living now, but something just keeps getting in the way. Join certified coach and former therapist Diane Wingert for the Driven Woman podcast. She'll show you how to get rid of whatever is holding you back so you can stop spinning your wheels and up-level your life. Get ready to hop in and buckle up. This is the Driven Woman podcast, and we're heading for the fast lane.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Driven Woman podcast. As always, I start off each show with the generous review from one of our listeners. This one, titled Incredible Content, comes from Christine Joy Luxarno. Christine's links are in the show notes. I really want you to connect with her because she is not only a badass and driven woman herself. Christine is a woman's wealth manager and financial advisor whose goal is to make sure every woman knows how to be financially savvy, financially sound, and financially secure. Now that's a goal I can get behind. Christine has this to say about the Driven Woman podcast. Diane generously shares life-changing counsel in such a compassionate, heartfelt, and sassy way. I love that she's a straight shooter that tells us just what we need to hear with the right dose of tough love. Diane, you rock. Well, Christine, I feel the same about you. Listeners, you gotta check her out. All of her links are in the show notes, and I would love to read your podcast review. So send it on in, and if you need to know how, just message me through Facebook or Instagram, and I'll show you the way. Now, I told you season 2 was going to be special, and I will not disappoint you. Today is our very first special guest interview. You are going to be listening in on my conversation with Dr. Yishan Xu, who is a Chinese-born and now resident of Northern California. She is a badass entrepreneur, a Stanford-trained clinical sleep specialist, certified in behavioral sleep medicine, a clinical psychologist with a group practice with over 10 clinicians, a podcaster with not one but 2 shows, including one I highly recommend called Deep Into Sleep. Yishan speaks both English and Mandarin, and during our conversation, she begins to question whether she too might be a high-ability woman with ADHD. You're going to learn about caffeine, sleep hygiene, napping, the entrepreneurial culture that says sleep is a waste of time, and so much more. I can't wait to share this conversation with Yishan Xu on The Driven Woman. Enjoy. Welcome to The Driven Woman.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation because, as you may know, a lot of entrepreneurs are not getting enough sleep. And because I tend to work with female entrepreneurs who identify with ADHD traits, I can say with full confidence that very few of them are getting the kind of sleep that they know they should. So I think they are going to learn a lot from this conversation today. But before we get into the specifics, I'm really curious about why you decided to become a sleep specialist.
Yeah, good question. So myself, I was never diagnosed with ADHD, but I always have a very active mind. I think I have a lot of ideas ever since I was a child. I like to imagine things and go-getter, but that's not last long. So for the sleep, when I entered that field, I actually did not know what I'm going to look at. I just had the opportunity to learn from a professor in Stanford. I, as a woman, really curious about all kinds of different things. I was like, I'm going to try it. It sounds interesting. I don't know much about that. Let me figure out. Once I start studying it, it's so fascinating. I start realizing actually I have a long history, family history of sleep disorders. My dad has sleep apnea. I never know. He snores loud for years and years. I never knew it's a disorder. And
Hmm.
my mom has some kind of insomnia. It's always hard for her to fall asleep. But in China, we call it like the weak nerve syndrome.
Hmm.
So we never think it's a sleep disorder. But after I learned all this, I was like, now I know better. And I even push my parents to get certain treatment to really help with their health. So that's my journey. I'm still learning and be very excited about everything about sleep right now.
This is great. Well, I have never had difficulty falling asleep. In fact, I've always been able to just drop at 10 p.m. most nights, unless I have a lot on my mind and I'm worried or stressed out. Obviously, we just went through a big election this week, and a lot of us were not sleeping well. We were waiting for the outcome of that. But in general, I haven't had a lot of trouble with sleep. However, most of my clients who identify with ADHD struggles and also entrepreneurs have difficulty sleeping. And I would say most of the things that I come across with my clients tend to either be they have too much to do. They are maybe not so good at planning things. They say yes to too many things. They maybe take on too much. And then, there's only so many hours of the day. So they keep working. And I definitely have workaholic tendencies. You might as well. And it's kind of hard to just say, okay, that's enough, because there's always more work to do when you're self-employed. And so a lot of times we continue to stimulate our brains because we keep working late into the night, and your brain doesn't just automatically shut off at some arbitrary point when you've been stimulating it that much. So that's part of it. But then oftentimes when they say, okay, I'm tired, I'm going to bed now, and they lie down and their mind just keeps going. So what do you do for your patients who have the busy mind that just won't turn off, even though it's 11, 12, 1 in the morning, and they know they need to go to sleep? What do you do for them?
Right. I would tend to think our brain as like any type of machine, but it's not a light switch. It's not like you turn it off, phew, I go to bed, I can fall asleep. Our brain is very complicated. It got so much information, it's processing it. It needs time to wind down, to calm down from a busy day to a very quiet night. It's like the opposite, right? We cannot expect our body and brain just shut down like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I notice a lot of high achievers, a lot of people have a lot of thoughts, a lot of like your show name, Driven Woman, right? So
Yes.
if you're very driven, you have a lot of dreams, you have a lot of ideas, of course you don't want to stop. But
that's right.
for sleep, sometimes we have to learn to stop. I think it's learn how to pause, relax, calm down, and wind down before bedtime to leave room for sleep to happen. It's as important as pick up the day, doing whatever important on your plate. I often tell people, don't work until the last minute and you turn down your computer, wash your face, and then you go to bed. I encourage a lot of my workaholic clients to set up a schedule at night. Force yourself, maybe stop working at 8 or 9. Sometimes they really want to push it. And, and then tell yourself, I have to squeeze a lot of things before that deadline, that time. And then I can use the rest of the time for myself. It's my own time. I'm taking care of myself. I'm also help my body, my mind to cool down from the heated ideas, the exciting day. And you give your brain more time. Then by the time you are on bed, you are more likely to be in the state that's helpful for the brain to generate sleep.
I like that suggestion. I think a lot of people feel that sleep is a waste of time. In fact, this is the classic perfectionist, workaholic, and those of us that have ADHD, and like you say, we have a lot of ideas, a lot of goals, a lot of plans. There's just never enough hours to do all those things. So for a lot of people, sleep literally feels like the biggest waste of time. And I'm sure you know that there are some very high profile entrepreneurs that like to brag about only getting 4 hours of sleep. There's politicians and other folks that do that too. But what are your thoughts about people who restrict sleep intentionally? They're sort of in a way disconnected from their body and their natural rhythms. Like I think most people, even if they're busy and have a lot going on, if they or look over at the clock and they say that it's 11:30 or midnight or 1 o'clock, and they know that they have to get up at 5 or 6, they know that they should go to bed, whether they're tired or not. But what do you do to persuade the person who says, sleep is a waste of time. I don't need that much. I do just fine with 4 hours a night. Is it possible that there are human brains that actually function optimally on that little sleep?
Yeah, it definitely there's individual difference, and there's some people can function with a 5 hour sleep if that's what their body wants. But most people, I would say based on research, most people's brain and body do need more than 5 hours to function well. And the research is quite scary, actually. If you are not giving yourself enough sleep at night based on how much your body needs, you restrict by 1 to 3 hours per night, your function during the day, they definitely got impaired, no matter whether you are aware of that or not. Your sharpness, your attention, your accurate rate actually can reduce as much as like 50% or more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we are not doing as good work during the daytime if we are restricting our sleep too much at night. And sometimes we don't realize it because our day-to-day work, right? We just go with the flow. We just like autopilot. We don't really stay at the moment. We don't know. But if you do a cognitive testing, you will know the difference, how dramatic it is. And the cognitive testing can really indicate how much you are functioning in real day-to-day activities. So I remember when I talked to other colleagues, other sleep doctors, they have really good suggestions to I would encourage people to think about this too, is if I tell you there's one thing, one kind of like not really medication, but this one magic thing can help you boost your attention, your performance during the daytime. There's no side effect. You don't have to pay money, right? You don't have to do anything like extra, try to get it. There's just this one magic thing can make you feel more energetic, better, and just doing great. Would you want to know what that thing is? Would you want to?
Of course they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
But then when you tell them it's sleep, do they think you tricked them?
I tell them not just go to sleep. It's like that magic thing. It's very simple. Just try to go to bed 15 minutes earlier. Just give yourself 10 to 15 more minutes at night for your sleep. And it already can bring all these nice things to happen during daytime for you. Actually,
so even 15 minutes, there would be a measurable improvement?
Yeah, if you can, we always tell people don't aim too high. As entrepreneur, we think, whoa, I need like sleep 7 to 8 hours, but I normally just sleep 5 hours. That's going to be hard. Don't set up yourself for failure. 15 minutes is a window we use clinically to help people extend their sleep, to try to find the optimal window. You always want to start from 15 minutes or around that. You can tweak it a little bit, but you extend that, see how you feel. If you do feel a little better and you are able to sleep that window, then you can choose to extend it a little bit further later until you reach a window that you feel like, this is perfect for me. This is already good enough. If I extend further, I cannot fall asleep. Or, my sleep is not as well. Then just keep it that way.
Yeah, 15 minutes, I think, would be, I think if you're talking to somebody who's used to sleeping 5 hours a night and you tell them, well, the science says you need from 7 to 9, we've all read that. They're probably going to just walk out and say that's impossible, right? I have a business to run. don't you know who I am? But I think 15 minutes, it's like, I love asking people to do an experiment. And the reason why is that I know people with ADHD are very curious people. So when you tell them you have to do this, you're probably going to get resistance. But if you say, I'm really curious, I wonder what would happen. Why don't we try this as an experiment? Then first of all, they're not as resistant. But secondly, maybe they are like, yeah, I wonder if that would make a difference. I mean, what if 15 minutes would make a significant, noticeable, lasting difference? Then maybe you want to stick with that for a little bit. But I wonder if 30 would be even better. And your natural curiosity might lead you to that. But I have another question for you. What do you think about the snooze button? Because I tell my clients that the snooze button is a no, not because there's anything inherently wrong in getting another 10 minutes of sleep, but because people with ADHD often struggle not only with sleep trouble, but with procrastination. And when you hit the snooze button, your first act of the day is an act of procrastination. And I think since that all behavior is habit forming, that's not a habit that I want to support you having. That being said, I happen to know that plenty of my clients and maybe many of the listeners to this podcast are very attached to their, snooze button. So I'd love to know, as a clinical sleep specialist, what your thoughts are about the snooze button. And are there times when it can be used, or is it a don't?
So for a snooze button, I think people need to know is I want to approach it from a different angle, not think about procrastination or, when I open my eyes, I'm a loser of the day. But from sleep science point of view, once your alarm starts ringing and you hit the snooze button, any sleep after that is really poor quality sleep. You are not actually sleeping. You think I keep on hitting the snooze button, I'm actually sleep a little bit more. That's what my body needs. But from a science point of view, that chunk of sleep, once you start hitting the button, it's just not useful sleep anymore. And
why is that?
Why
Why
having
is that? Because they'll say, no, I just go right back to sleep. And then all of a sudden it goes off again and I turn it off and I go, but I'm thinking, doesn't it take longer than 10 minutes to get into a deeper level of sleep? Is that why it doesn't work?
It's mostly just going to be light stage of sleep, or half sleep, half awake, which throughout the night, you should already have most of the sleep is light stage of sleep, right? So we rotate between light stage, deep sleep, light stage, and then REM sleep. All those are very important. We need a certain percentage of that. And then in the morning, you want to really keep your sleep. You want consolidated sleep, basically. Once you hit the snooze button, your sleep becomes fragmented. You keep on being waken up from this, going to light stage sleep a little bit, wake up, and you always like your body is hyper aroused. It's no, there's something gonna keep on ringing. It won't help you go into a relaxed state of sleep. So that part of sleep, it really won't add much to your total sleep time, because clinically, when I treat people, I always emphasize the quality of sleep, not the quantity of the sleep. If you have 10 hours fragmented sleep, I think you would rather have 5-hour high quality sleep. That can be better for you.
Okay. So what would be, let's say somebody listening has that habit. They have a hard time falling asleep at night, have a hard time letting go of the waking day, letting their busy mind slow down. And then next thing they know, it's time to wake up. The alarm is going off and they just don't feel ready. If we don't want them to hit the snooze button because it's not really giving them anything beneficial, what should they do instead? Because they don't feel quite ready. And probably at that moment, they're probably kind of vulnerable and going to have a hard time choosing something that feels challenging.
Right.
What would be the first step to sort of break that habit? Because I think it makes sense that if it's only 10 minutes, even if you have yourself convinced that you're falling back to sleep deeply, scientifically, that's not possible. It takes longer than that. So as long as it's not really going to benefit you and you really are better off getting up, how do you get someone to start forming the habit of not doing it when they are convinced that they can't stop hitting the snooze button?
Yeah, actually, a lot of night owls tend to use snooze button more than early bird. Early bird just naturally wake up. So I would share the science behind it. I would help people understand, like, the morning time, wake up time need to be consistent from day to day. And so either you use snooze button or not, keep a set time. And, ideally,
even on the weekends?
Even on the weekend, yes. A half-hour range, you can shift a little bit, but no more than 1 hour. Or else Monday, you're going to suffer. If Monday to Friday, you get up, snooze button, the alarm wake you up at 5, and then weekend, you sleep until 10. That's going to mess you up Sunday night and Monday morning. You don't want to do that. So you want consistent wake up time. It's the anchor of the whole day's circadian rhythm. So I would say no matter how late you go to bed, try to always get up around similar time, and how to not rely on snooze button. You can rely on other things or multiple stimuli, like the bright light. That's the most helpful thing to help trigger us and to really get us awake. Right. You have, for me, for example, I have the blackout curtain, so the light cannot go in easily. I have the AI light right now, the Philips Hue. So at that certain time, go with my alarm. Once my alarm is on, the light is on. And that's a very natural way. I notice I always wake up, and then I can make a decision slowly. It's a gentle light. It's slowly gets stronger. Or you can just open the curtain once you wake up, or if you have automatic curtain, that way the bright light going to your eyes directly help you. I think it's a stronger cue than the snooze button.
I love that. As a matter of fact, I'm just imagining, you're like on your bed, face down, groggy, probably don't want to get up. And then all of a sudden it's whatever time, 7:00, and you have a smart house, right? So the curtain opens, the special lights go on, and music starts to play that's not jarring like an alarm, but it's, maybe something pleasant and you give yourself 10 minutes to be fully awakened, but that's part of the plan. You're not like hitting the snooze button and trying to negotiate with the plan. Like the plan is I give myself 10 minutes to wake up, and I have all of these tools that help me do that. I would think that would be really, really useful.
Yeah. And that's just a start. Once you can keep a relatively consistent wake up time and relatively pleasant, the way you describe that is much more pleasant than think, I lay on bed for too long again today. It's just a struggle. My day starts like this way again. You're actually have a routine morning ritual. I know you are big on rituals, and just think about how I start my day in a relatively pleasant way. And then if you can do that consistently, you can eventually change the bedtime accordingly. So it's a window. Sleep is a window. You keep one end firm, then you can really eventually impact the other end. And eventually you may have a better sleep window for yourself.
I like that a lot. And I'm also a big believer in waking up at the same time every day, 7 days a week. Doesn't matter if it's a work day, non-work day, doesn't even matter if it's a holiday, only because I know that willpower is not a consistent and reliable resource for decision making. So I like to put things on autopilot as much as possible. So I don't have to face my will every day. And I don't have to have those discussions with myself like, do I feel like it or not? This is kind of irrelevant. I'm going to get up at this time because that's the commitment I made. I'm not looking to feel like it. It reminds me of a client that I had who really was a successful entrepreneur, mom, wife, and struggling to find time for exercise. So we talked about the fact that, it's really best to exercise in the morning for many reasons, but not the least of which is because as the day goes on, you have more and more demands on your time. You have more and more demands on your energy. You have more obligations. You have more people expecting things of you, more demands and more emergencies that could happen. If you want to get exercise consistently, do it first thing in the morning. So she realized she's going to have to get up at 5 and go for a run. Well, after a few weeks of very successfully getting up every day and running, she asked me, so how long before I get to the point where I actually feel like it? And I said, let's not make that the goal. Wouldn't it be good enough if every day you wake up at 5, even if the first thought of the day is, why did I say I was going to do this? And that's just going to be the first thought of the day. And it's not going to stop you, because the very next thing you're going to think is, where are my shoes? Let me get my keys. And the next thing you know, you're on your way out the door. I think when we are depending on feeling like something, all bets are lost. And I'm sure that you would not be nearly as successful as you are in work and life if you always waited to feel like doing something. Would you agree?
Right, exactly. Just like how I tell other people with mood disorders, right, especially depression, don't wait until you feel like going out, do something. You go ahead, do it. And that actually help your brain to function in a certain way, to process information in a certain way. Then you will not feel like doing it still, but you may feel great. You may feel much better after doing things. For example, that also.
Yeah, it's when I think about that, instead of the feels are part of the equation, but we don't wait to do something thinking we're going to feel like it first. Just do it. You will feel good for having done it afterwards. It's like you just have to be able to push your gratification out a little bit. So let's say we've got a person who maybe isn't getting quite enough sleep. Maybe they have got a consistent wake up time. So they're trying to make the effort to do that. But some nights they get to bed at a reasonable time. Other nights it's late. And they ask you, hey, on the days when I didn't get quite enough sleep and I'm feeling a little sluggish in the afternoon, or I have an important meeting that night, or, I wouldn't want to yawn in front of a client. What do you think about naps? I know there's a lot of controversy about naps, even in the sleep scientific community. I happen to be a napper. I'm a big fan of naps, but I know that they have to be either 20 minutes or 40 minutes. If I go longer than that, I feel more fatigued and more sort of slow and unmotivated. So what are your thoughts about naps, especially for business people?
Yeah, I have two versions of the thoughts on this. One is the scientific version, one is my personal version. The scientific version, typically what we suggest people clinically is, if you are not getting enough sleep, or you think your body for whatever reason really need a nap, then definitely you can consider taking a nap. But you want to pay attention to it. You want to take a nap as early of the day as possible. Be far away from the nighttime, and keep it short, just like you mentioned. Keep it less than 30 or 40 minutes, ideally. That way you don't go into deep sleep. That's normally how much it takes our brain and body to go into deep sleep. Once you go into deep sleep during a nap, then you're going to wake up really groggy and disoriented, and you won't feel rested, even though you are actually did get some rest, right? But if you nap too close to nighttime, that's going to hurt your sleep drive. It's like taking some snack before dinner time. You are already full enough. You're not hungry enough to eat dinner. And if you take nap late in the evening, then you won't feel sleepy enough to fall asleep at night. And you may push your bedtime even later, and it's just a bad cycle. So for naps, scientific suggestion is take it earlier the day, keep it short. right?
Okay.
Yeah, my personal version is really you want to respect your own personal background, your culture, your what your body needs. Like I know a lot of culture, including my own culture, Chinese culture, we do take nap. And I took nap since a child. Every noon, everyone, like almost all the work in China. My dad is doctor. My mom work in some kind of corporation, government, and it's just they all keep this 1 hour at least lunch time, this break time. Nobody do work, so you can rest. You can take a nap. Even as student in school, we do the same thing. You nap, either in the classroom on the table or in a dorm. You go back to take a nap. It's culturally promoted. If you come from a culture background or family background like that, then you want to respect that because it's possibly already formed your body in a certain way. Then you can definitely do that, but still keep it kind of short. And noontime is early enough, so you will be fine regarding the time, right? Just to keep it kind of short, less than 1 hour, maybe. So I would say I always respect the diversity in terms of taking a nap.
I'm very happy to hear that this is a cultural norm because to me, since I have been working full-time from home, what I have learned is I really like to get up early and I don't stay up very late, but in the middle of the day, I have an energy dip. And so what feels really good to me is to have a light lunch, to do a little bit of reading and to take a nap. And then I get up from that and it's kind of like a split shift. So I have like several hours of work in the morning and then I have several hours of work later. And in between, it's a break for me that feels very, very restorative. Now, I'm fortunate that I'm self-employed like you, so I can sort of create the lifestyle that works for me, my needs, my brain, my stage of life. I know not everybody can do that, but I can only imagine how much healthier American culture would be if we gave this as an option, that the middle of the day, there was respect for the fact that I don't really think anybody's brain works 8 hours continuously at full capacity. In fact, I remember reading a study that said in a typical 8-hour workday, you're only actually productive for about 4.5 to 5.5 hours, just no matter what kind of work you do, because we are not at full brain power, full focus, full motivation for 8 continuous hours. It's not human nature. So I love that there is an understanding of that culturally and that it's built in across the board so you don't get shamed as a napper. I've had people tease me for being a napper, but it's like, it is what it is. Now, on the topic of napping and sleep, something I have done that I have shared with some of my clients, and they've done it too, is called a caffeine nap, which I'm sure you're familiar with, where you have a cup of coffee, and you put on maybe your sleep mask and you lie down in a comfortable, darkened room for 20 minutes, because that's how long it takes for the caffeine to kick in. I won't ask you what you think about the caffeine nap, because we've already talked about napping, but what, from your perspective, is the relationship between caffeine and sleep? Because again, a lot of people with ADHD choose not to be medicated, but almost all of them consume caffeine because of what it does for focus and so forth. So what do you think the impact of caffeine on sleep is in terms of timing and amount and all of that? Because I know this is something that people are very curious about, and there's a lot of opinions out there.
Right. I will just tell us what research find right now is caffeine has a quite long half-life. So a lot of people don't know the caffeine, the half-life is between 4 to 7 hours. So it means if you drink some coffee or other type of caffeine, it's going to stay in your body for, 8 up to 14 or 15 hours. So keep in mind. And when you have caffeine in your body, caffeine does not actually bring in extra energy to us. Caffeine actually is a thing to really cut the signal between our brain and our body. So our brain normally will send out the signal to say we are tired, we are sleepy. But with caffeine, that signal can be blocked temporarily. So actually we are still possibly sleepy. we just don't receive the signal. And
it's like you're trying to place a call, but it's not going through.
Yeah. So that's why we feel energetic. We can keep on going, but it does not mean caffeine bring extra, fuels us. So we are so powerful now. It just, we don't know we are tired mostly.
Do you know, I have been thinking that coffee gives me energy my whole life. My mind is just blown right now. I'm like, wait, what? No. So it's basically, it's preventing your body from recognizing, getting the signal from your brain that you actually are tired. So that doesn't actually sound healthy to block the signal, right?
Yeah. So I would say still, but a lot of people get used to it. Be careful if you don't sleep well, you suddenly want to drop caffeine, you will have this caffeine withdrawal. You will have headache, and in the morning,
Been there.
awful.
It's very painful.
Yeah, when you try to adjust your sleep schedule plus caffeine withdrawal, they're going to be really awful. So I would say I don't think caffeine necessarily a bad thing. Myself also drink it as a habit. After I came to America, never drink it before. So you want to keep it maybe earlier during the day, just to be aware how it may impact you. It impacts different people differently, right? Some people, it get out of your system very quickly. Some people can drink coffee at night, can still sleep. If that's you possibly fine. It's still in your body, but while you're sleeping, it's getting out of your system. But for other people, it just impacts you a lot. Then you definitely want to cut down the usage and watch out the timing of it, so it does not keep on blocking the signal at night when your body really need that signal to generate.
Okay. You may not want to answer this because I know you're not a medical doctor, you're a psychologist, but do you think there's a problem for people who take stimulants? If they have ADHD and they take stimulants, is there a problem with them also using caffeine, which is also a stimulant?
I definitely not sure how those two go together. I definitely have clients when they are on stimulant, they can be so energetic, sleep become a problem for them sometimes, especially if they use the medication in the afternoon. So I feel like there's some similarity there. But whether you use them together are going to cause more harm, I haven't heard much about that.
It's probably something that a psychiatrist needs to know. But what I'm curious about is who goes to see a sleep specialist? I don't think most people would even know that a sleep specialist exists. Right. And, I think I've heard of sleep studies, but usually when I hear someone is getting a sleep study is because someone suspects they have sleep apnea, where they literally stop breathing during the night. And obviously that's a serious condition. But what would be a typical person who would either get referred to you or choose to come see you or one of your colleagues in the clinic? What kind of problems do people recognize need a sleep specialist, a sleep psychologist in particular, to address?
Yeah, so I'm specialized in behavioral sleep medicine. So that's more, I'm type of a sleep specialist who handle insomnia mostly, or circadian rhythm disorder, things like that. Is if you cannot fall asleep, you cannot stay asleep, you wake up far too early, you don't get enough sleep, or you don't have any other physical problems, or other MD doctor cannot identify any the other type of sleep disorder. They think it's psychological or maybe behavioral, because your habit is not good, or the way you think about sleep really gets in, or you just sleep, get up in a weird time, really interfere with your day-to-day life. They can come to see a sleep specialist. We do assessment. We really figure out what's going on with you, what gets in the way of a good night of sleep for you, and then what can be helpful for you. So that's mostly what I do.
Okay. And how big a problem is this, in the States and globally? How big a problem is either not getting enough sleep, getting enough quality sleep? And is this something that we are just not being honest with ourselves about? Because I know in the entrepreneurial world, there's a lot of people that brag about how little sleep they get. because there's a lot of glorification of work, 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 and hustle, hustle, hustle. And I also know people with ADHD oftentimes have difficulty sleeping, as we've talked about. So you've got an ADHD entrepreneur who's part of this culture of glorifying lack of sleep, and their brain has a hard time going to sleep anyway. What do we know about the cost and the risks of this? Because sometimes people are just used to what they're used to and really don't know that it's a serious problem and there are serious consequences. They just haven't experienced them yet.
Yeah, it's quite common, more common than we think. There are different research, have different data, but about 60 to 70% adults are not sleeping enough, right? Are depriving their own sleep. And insomnia is also very common. More than 50% of adults may have some kind of insomnia symptom. And around 1/3 adults can be diagnosed with insomnia. And some of them are, chronic insomnia. Some of them more like short-term problems. So it's like sleep actually very common. And also there's certain percent like smaller, much on the smaller end, has other type of sleep disorders and contribute to their daytime sleepiness. So if you feel really sleepy during the daytime, it may be more complicated than you think. It may not just because you did not sleep enough the night before, a lot of possibilities. But the consequences can also be huge. We have a lot more researchers writing books and going on the shows talking about what it can do to us. We know if we are not constantly not getting enough sleep, we deprive our sleep, then it can lead to a lot of health consequences like high blood pressure and even potential later like memory problems, concentration problems, and performance deficit. So cognitive deficit and health problems for sure. And increased rate of heart disease, all that can come from not sleeping enough. And if we have insomnia that we are not able to fall asleep, no matter how much opportunity we give us to sleep, right? That's slightly different. But that can still lead to some health consequences like high blood pressure. I think it's limited research on it's relatively less consequence than sleep deprivation, but mostly the consequence is psychological. You feel very anxious about sleep. You feel like your life is ruined. You change your life schedule, your routine in order avoid doing things in order to rest at home because you had insomnia. So there's a lot of like lifestyle change and the psychological consequences for insomnia.
Do you think that there's also a connection between not getting enough sleep, whether it's sleep deprivation, where you're intentionally depriving yourself, or you have insomnia? I've been hearing lately that not getting enough sleep is also related to weight gain. And if we are not getting, we may convince ourselves we don't need it, but if your diet is the same and your exercise is the same, but your waist is getting bigger, you may not be getting enough sleep. Would you say some more about that? Because I think maybe we just have to reach people through vanity. They're saying, I'm not going to have a heart attack. I'm not going to have high blood pressure. Yes, but you're going to get fat. They're like, wait, what?
Yeah, actually, it's very funny. Yeah. If we are not sleeping enough, we get more hungry. And there's a lot of chemical change in our body. We get more hungry. We tend to consume high sugar or like high fat,
carbs,
those kind of food unconsciously. And the night snacks, we may crave those things. So people think, I'm not sleeping enough. I should lose weight. The opposite. If you don't be careful, you just gain weight.
Oh, do you think it's possible that some people, probably not all, but some people may not need to make any other changes in order to lose weight, but adjust their sleep?
Yeah, actually, I interviewed another entrepreneur earlier. He lost 40 pounds just by changing his sleep. Of course, he started from changing sleep, and then a lot of other things come after that naturally. But he just started from setting up a set time to get up a little bit earlier than he thought, and stop being the couch potato at night. And he thinks changing sleep changed his whole life. And he also pushed him to become entrepreneur. When he made that change, he was not entrepreneur. He was like a 9-to-5 job. And
wow.
So it's a bunch of change. So I think there's a strong link there.
So folks, if you are listening to this, if you've made it all the way to this point in the interview, just think about it. If you are not yet an entrepreneur, you are aspiring to be one and are on your way. And maybe you're wondering, do I have the energy for this? It might not be your diet. It might not be, and it might be sleep. And it seems to me that would be a little bit easier to fix, especially when there are experts out there like Dr. Xu. So if anybody listening wants to get a hold of you, I know you have a busy practice in Northern California, but you work virtually. You have 2 podcasts. Deep into Sleep is the one that I originally connected with you through. How can people get a hold of you and learn more about what you do and maybe how they can fix their sleep problem for good?
Yeah. If people want to find my practice, the website is mindbodygarden.com. Our clinic called Mind Body Garden Psychology. Yeah. You can Google each to find us. And the link is also on the podcast website, deepintosleep.co. So if you find any of the website or just Google my name, Yishan Xu, you may find me.
And you also have a YouTube channel, don't you?
Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel, mostly for podcasts, and I shoot video and put them on. So it's mostly Chinese, but some videos are in English. So it's called Ask Yishan. If you search that on YouTube, you may find it.
I will make sure that all of the links to Dr. Xu and all of the things that she offers and the ways that you can connect with her and listen to her podcast are included in our show notes. Now, folks, wasn't that worth it? Wasn't she a wonderful guest? And didn't you learn a lot about sleep? I literally had no idea about the impact of caffeine messing up the signal. I'll never feel the same way about that afternoon cup again. Thank you so much for being on The Driven Woman, and I'm definitely going to stay in contact with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying listening to the Driven Woman podcast and looking forward to each new episode every Tuesday. Are you ready to take our relationship to the next level? Visit my website at dianewingertcoaching.com. I have a weekly blog. There's a quiz you can take to find out what your ADHD signature strength is, and some other freebies like the 6 Steps to ADHD Mastery or the Driven Woman Roadmap Fast Track to Success. And if you're ready to get serious about going from spinning to winning and taking yourself from driven but distracted to focused, fired up, and flame retardant, you should definitely sign up for a free consultation. We'll spend 30 minutes talking about where you are, where you want to be, and whatever's getting in the way. I won't try to sell you if you're not right for coaching, and I'm not the right one for you. But if you are, this might be the best way to make 2021 your best year ever. Want to hear from someone who's actually worked with me? Have a listen to my client, Rachel.
I didn't have you helping me along the way to understand a lot of this stuff, the meds would have been a waste for me, a complete and total waste. I would have had a little bit more energy maybe, but still the habits, whatever. There's no magic pill. It's always going to be something I'm going to have to work on. And I am understanding that and being okay with that and just kind of working through that and thinking and being intentional and stopping myself and doing all of the things for the first time in my life. I'm going to tell you right now, the meds have allowed me to slow stuff down enough that I've never been this effective at anything cognitive ever in my life. But I've also never had it explained to me by somebody who understands what's going on in my head either.
You've been listening to the Driven Woman podcast with Diane Wingert. Want more straight talk and strategy each week that will take you from spinning to winning? Don't forget to hit subscribe in your podcast player so you won't miss a single episode. Then head on over to the Driven Woman free and private Facebook group community. See you there.